Good morning, everyone. It is October 17th. This is Man Coverage, Knoxville Nate and the coach, RICO McCoy. We are going to talk to you for an hour about this week in college football. Another solid group of games. A lot of things to get into today. I know most of us were up late last night checking out the end of the return of Lane Kiffin. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. But I figured we'd start off with the battle of the 6-0 teams. Talk a little bit about Georgia and Kentucky. I got to be honest with you, man. I am not a believer, or was not a believer, in Mr. Cologne, Stetson Bennett. I didn't think he would be able to beat Kentucky. I didn't think if it came down to him, he would be able to get it done. And honestly, yesterday he did get it done. 14 of 20, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. No picks.
There you go.
Pretty solid. Pretty solid. What did you think, Rico?
That's all you could ask for. I mean, at this point, he did a little more than what I even expected him to do. I expected him to be a great game manager. And he put a little pizzazz on it. He was efficient. He threw touchdowns, no turnovers. That's all you could ask for. But UGA's defense, they rose to the top again. 3 sacks, 8 TFLs. That changes the ball game.
Wow.
That changes the ball game. Constant pressure, guys making tackles, playing football. But I will give kudos to Kentucky. They're not Kentucky of the early 2000s, I'll tell you that.
Nope.
Or the late 90s. They're actual, firing all cylinders football team now.
Yeah.
They're a proud member of the SEC. Hey, listen, Kentucky is they're not a doormat program anymore, and they're only getting better. And this game solidified that for me. Even in a loss, those guys they showed that they were worthy opponents of the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, think about that. Kentucky in a ball game with the number 1 team in the country. They've come a long ways, and I'd say their head coach he's working some magic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I was impressed with the way Kentucky never quit. There was a couple times in the second half they could have folded, but they kept fighting. I like that quarterback, Will Levis. He was throwing it pretty good. Honestly, they probably should have started throwing it a little bit earlier.
They waited, didn't they? They waited quite a bit.
They were damned and determined to try and get that running game going. And with those boys up front, it's just damn near impossible. And I know you can't completely abandon the run, but there was no way they were going to run on this team. I mean, Quay Walker, 9 tackles. Ringo had a sack. Jalen Carter is one of the best defensive linemen I've ever seen. I don't know. This defense is pretty solid. I mean, we'll see how far it takes them. But as a former player, Coach, I got to ask you, what does Georgia do now? I mean, they've been throwing Johnny Cologne out there for 3 weeks. Do they, as a teammate of his, do you want to go back to JT Daniels, or you want to stick with the kid out there? I mean, what do you think they should do, and what do you think they will do?
I'm not sure what they'll do. Is there a real right answer?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Part of me says tell JT to go out there and practice every day as if he is the starting quarterback. And if the moment arises, the occasion arises where we can throw you in there, be ready. And that's a game time decision. I mean, because right now nothing's broke. Of course, the ceiling's higher, with JT. But, I mean, your quarterback, Stetson Bennett's doing all the right stuff right now. He's doing enough to win games. He's not making mistakes. He's being a leader. It's almost to the point where you say, hey, let's play. And then when we get in a situation where we're forced to really throw the ball, or we have to you're uncomfortable or you can't deliver, JT, be ready. Next man up. I think that would be my approach. And JT has to understand that. Look, we took over the number one spot in the country with this guy. Not saying we couldn't have done it with you, but this is just the facts of the matter. He led us here. He's been the guy in control the last couple of weeks, and I think he deserves that opportunity to lose it. So right now, I'm going with it. You know, we're not switching tracks right now. It's working. It's a smooth trip so far. So I'm gonna let him keep driving. You know, he gets any hiccups or something like that, JT take over, relieve the guy. But right now, I need you to be positive. I need you to be a good teammate. I need you to get better in practice every day, and we'll go from there. He has to understand that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't think I'd make any changes right now. I actually agree with you, and I'm admitting that I was wrong. I figured they would go back to JT as soon as possible. I'm also kind of wondering, how are you out for almost a month with a strained lat? I mean, you know, I got to be honest. I played football for a long time. Maybe not at the level of these guys, but I played football for a long time, and I never missed a game due to a strained lat. So I don't know, kind of weird, but big victory for them.
Unless that was one of the, you know, a strategy they were using. Who knows? Maybe it's not even that, because we both know that a little discomfort. What did he say? A lat? Come on, you can play.
You can play through that.
Maybe they're hiding a bigger issue, and they want him to finish out the season, or at least be available to finish out the season. But it sounds fishy a little bit to me too. Like, train, whatever.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. And, you know, let's be honest. It wasn't like he was throwing for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns every game, you know, before the injury. He was doing all right. They obviously won the games he started too, but, you know, this kid's improved. And I'm talking about Johnny Cologne, Mr. Stetson. He's a lot better than he was last year. And last year he was a liability. This year he's doing what he needs to do to not screw it up, essentially, for the Bulldogs. So big win for them. If in case people did not know, I'll throw a little FF for you, a little fun fact. That was the first time that Kentucky was 6-0 since Bear Bryant was there in 1950. So
progress.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Got to give him credit for that. Moving along, we got to jump up to the Midwest and discuss the the formerly ranked number 2 team in the country, the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, I've mentioned on this show, and I've mentioned throughout passings, that I didn't think that Iowa was the number 2 team in the country. I thought that their record was a little bit inflated. They had a good couple of decent wins. That win against Penn State, the win against Maryland was good, but you know what? I wasn't that impressed. And, you know, I got to be honest, I was wrong about Stetson. I was right about this one. They got their butts kicked yesterday at home against Purdue. So is this the end of the Hawkeyes, Coach? What do you think?
It should be. It should be. I mean, and it was a simple explanation for it. It was poor passing game versus a very efficient passing game. I mean, you got a receiver for Purdue, David Bell. That had to have been a record day for him. 11 catches, 240 yards, and a touchdown. 11 catches, 240 yards, and a touchdown. And you know, on the other side of things, you had a quarterback who had a nightmare of a day. You know, 17 of 32, 195 yards, four interceptions, 0 touchdowns. You know, Petrus for Iowa.
Wow.
You know, O'Connell was 30 of 40 for Purdue, 375 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. That right there is, I mean, that's one of the game maxims. The team that makes the fewest mistakes will win. Well, this was a no-brainer. You can't throw 4 interceptions and not put up anything to even cancel it out. No touchdowns. You're less than 50%. You're right there at it, completion percentage. And then on the other side, you got a guy playing lights out, 30 or 40, 375 yards, 2 touchdowns. Neither team really had a running game. It came down to that. I don't know why you kept trying to throw the ball that way. It surprised me. Like, it's Iowa. What are you guys doing? I feel like the moment was too big for them. It was like, hey, relieve us of this duty. It's a burden sometimes to be ranked so high.
Yeah.
And they folded.
Yeah.
They folded. Purdue came in and they made a day. They made a day of it.
Yeah. No, I still remember when the what's the guy's name? The local reporter here in town announced that Jeff Brom was the new coach of the Tennessee Vols. And I was like, man, that's a good hire. Now, of course, the guy ended up being 100% wrong and made an ass out of himself on national TV. And I'm not even going to give him the respect of mentioning his name on the show, but that would have been a good hire because this guy is a good coach. And if you recall, he knocked out my Buckeyes a couple years ago. And he can get his team prepared for a ball game. And
was that the boy Rondale Moore? Wasn't that his freshman year?
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I remember that night.
Yeah. I remember also. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't. But this is what we mentioned a couple weeks ago when we talked about how, Iowa's pretty solid against the run. Their defense is not bad. They've got a good defense. But like you just mentioned, they got lit up last night in the secondary. And that's, you're not going to beat anybody these days if you can't cover. And I'll ask you this question because, you got more experience in this type of atmosphere than I do. 4 picks and you don't roll another dude out there? I mean, I know this is the guy that got you there, but let's be honest, this was not his night. I don't know. I mean, I guess you're ranked number 2. This guy's your quarterback, but he was hurting you more than he was helping you last night. So I don't know. We talked about him before, but
yeah, I don't look unless coach was looking on the sideline and looking at the next gap like hey, he's looking at the next gap like listen, he must have not had any other option. I mean, come on, man. Like, get a kid a break. He needed to be relieved of his duty. He needed to be set on the bench for the remainder of the year. But, hey, this is not your night, and it happens every once in a while. I would have pulled him, I think. It depends on what he has on the bench. And Coach either wanted to let him, die out there, or he just knew that what was on the bench couldn't come in and do any better. So you just never know the situation. But, hey, the average guy is definitely going to think, hey, let's put another scholarship guy in there and give him a shot because we're just hurting ourselves right now. So.
Yeah, and that's my question is, does this, I guess if you get pulled, it may hurt, the kid's confidence, but surely he's a little shook after throwing 4 picks, right? I mean, I don't know. I think his confidence was a little shook. And as Bonneville just mentioned, David Bell was huge. And you are correct. Rico just mentioned that kid is the real deal.
Yeah.
And I think he's one of the top receivers in the Big Ten and possibly one of the best in the country. So big win for the Purdue Boilermakers. And, we'll see if Iowa can regroup. But I kind of thought they were pretenders to begin with. And let's be honest, yesterday they looked like pretenders. So,
Call it how you see it, huh, Nate? It's just they're never as good, they're never as bad. They're like we talked about earlier, they're in the same boat as the Wisconsin when they're a Wisconsin program when they're rolling, and it's just a matter of time before you get that letdown. They're never really as good. Of course, SEC bias here. I don't care. I watch Big Ten football a lot. I like Big Ten football, but Wisconsin, Iowa, those teams will let you down. Now, solid Ohio State is going to play solid football. Solid much as I hate to say it, a really good Michigan team is going to play good football.
Yeah.
But, Michigan State, Penn State, they come to fight. But you don't know what you're going to get from Wisconsin. They could be 5-0, 6-0. They will let you down. Iowa, same way. It's always, look at Iowa, look at Wisconsin. And I'm like, let's wait and see when the season's over where they finish up.
Yeah, I just wasn't on the bandwagon. Every year it seems like they're, they win 3, 4, 5 games, and all of a sudden they find themselves in the top 10. And I'm looking at, the real meat of their ball club, and I'm just like, I don't know if that's a top 10 team. It's kind of like in the preseason poll we were talking about Iowa State. And I was like, I've seen Iowa State play, and I'm not so sure they're a top 10 team. Same thing with these boys. And, they got their butts handed to them yesterday. And it was 24-7, but it wasn't that close, honestly. It was pretty bad. And we'll see if they can regroup. But that's the kind of loss, in my opinion, that can set your program back and potentially derail your season moving forward. Just kind of a demoralizing victory for Purdue. But we got to talk as well about the Boomer Sooner. We mentioned how we thought that they would probably stick with your DC boy.
Oh yeah,
Caleb Williams,
hometown. Let's go.
And they did, and it turned out to be a good move. 18 of 23, 295 yards, 4 touchdowns, 66 yards on the ground and a touchdown, and 52 points over TCU. What did you think of your boy?
He did what he always does. That's what he does. He's a very good football player and may be considered great at the end of his career. He's a winner. I watched this kid win a high school championship. It was all on his back in one of the toughest conferences in the country, the WCAC, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference. And, they play St. John's. They play DeMatha, Good Counsel. They play all the big dogs up there. And this guy wheeled his team to a championship. I've seen him do it all. So there's nothing new. This is nothing new to him. The win last week, he's been doing that stuff since Little League. Coming back, winning games, and he's used to the pressure. You see how cool and calm he is during these games, man. He's mature. He's a seasoned vet already.
He doesn't look like a freshman out there, bud. Especially a freshman in the second game that he's really, been the guy. And let's be honest, that offense is completely different. I mean, they've been squeaking wins out against Tulane, against everyone that they've been playing. They've been winning, but it's not like they've been blowing people out. And TCU played good yesterday. Max Dugan was 20 of 30, and he had 4 touchdowns of his own, 346 yards for TCU. So it's not like TCU laid down for them. They played tough. Right. And they just couldn't overcome this kid because he's the real deal. And I think this is the end of old Spencer as the starter in Oklahoma.
Hey, we know how this thing goes now. You can't say that too early. We've seen some crazy things over these last few seasons, especially with quarterbacks, and especially there.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not saying there's no way it happens, but I'm just saying that barring injury, I think this is your guy going forward. And I think he makes Oklahoma a top 5 team and a potential college football playoff team if they keep playing like this. So we'll see what happens. But I think, Lincoln Riley knows what he's doing. And he knows who should be out there. He knows which guy is running the offense better. And that was a big win for them. They handed it to them. So we'll give them credit. We'll also have to give a little credit to our your boy Bryce Young, who came back.
Listen. We have to talk. I was going to tell you, we have to talk about him. He's my player of the week again. And it's just because he every time he touches the field, Nate, he's spectacular. And you know what it's like? He's so good that people just are starting to overlook it. I mean,
They expect it.
he went 20 of 28, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, no fumble, no turnover. This is the norm for this dude now.
Yeah.
And people don't talk about it because he's consistently doing this stuff. And I'm looking at like this is the best player in college football to me.
He may be.
He's the best football player right now playing college football. No question about it. He's reliable. If you look at last week, you can go back and look at last week's game. This dude still almost threw for 400 yards. No turnovers. This dude is a beast.
Yeah.
That's my player of the week right there. It's just because he's so consistent. He's the man every time he touches the field.
Yeah, it's almost like people forget that he is also, a first year starter.
Yeah. And
they come to expect it from him. But that was a big game for them after, a loss. They haven't lost a regular season game in years. And to come back and play like they did yesterday, that's pretty impressive. And as you mentioned, we come to just kind of expect it. But I think we need to take note and mention that was a huge, huge game for him. And they just dominated Mississippi State, who's had some decent games this year, and they flogged them yesterday out on the field.
Okay, and give the guy Nathaniel Watson his credit.
Yeah.
Okay, give him his credit. I noticed he was making a whole bunch of tackles out there. The linebacker, who wore number 14. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody watched the game should have noticed him, but he finished up. I knew he made a bunch of tackles, but I had no idea he made as many as he did.
16. 16 tackles.
I had to give him a shout out.
That's got to be some kind of record. 16 tackles against Bama. This is a kid, Nathaniel Watson, like you said, number 14, a junior out of Maplesville, Alabama. Big time performance.
I need you to look at it. How many sacks? TFLs. Come on, he had a day.
Yeah, he had at least a sack. He had a tackle for loss. He was all over the place for Mississippi State, and kind of a one-man wrecking crew for that defense. So we'll give them some credit, but that was a big bounce-back game for Alabama. And something, we kind of expected that, but things can go two ways after a loss. You can either regroup, like we just mentioned with Iowa. You can either regroup and come back and play a good game, or you can start to have the wheels come off a little bit and fall apart. And they did not fall apart. They looked pretty solid. So we'll give old Nick Saban some credit on that one. We got to touch a little bit on the Bearcats. Cincinnati played yesterday. Probably one of the few games left that the opponent was capable of beating them, I guess. I mean, it didn't look like it yesterday, but UCF and that crew has given them trouble in the past in some games, but not really yesterday. And my player of the week is the transfer running back, Jerome Ford, transferred from Alabama to Cincinnati. Man, he was the difference in that game. They couldn't stop him. I saw him get tackled like 5 times the entire game, and the rest of it he was just looking up at the jumbotron, making sure nobody was behind his ass.
Yeah,
he was going for pay dirt. 20 carries, 189 yards, 4 touchdowns for Jerome Ford. So that's my player of the week.
Okay, awesome.
He was legit. So you've seen Cincinnati play. What do you think, Rico? You think this is a team that is going to keep rolling and stay in the top 4, or what do you think?
I think they're going to keep rolling. They have a coach that I admire. I like Luke Fickell a lot. Great leadership, players coach, people person. He's going to keep you, and you see the difference. He's bringing in quality guys. He left Ohio State, but that mentality and that mindset and him wanting those caliber of players, it didn't change. And he's bringing those caliber guys to Cincinnati now. And you're seeing it. He's running up the score on people. Those guys are playing great football all around. He has top-notch defenders. He has guys coming in playing on the offensive side of the ball. I want to see how far he can take these guys. It's pretty soon. It's not going to be if these guys can't compete. They're going to be a staple in big football. I think that's the point that he's trying to get to, and I think it'll come rather sooner than later. So I don't think Cincinnati's leaving anytime soon. I think they're here to stay.
Yeah, no, I mean they've impressed enough, obviously, to get into a Power 5 conference, and they're heading to the Big 12, and I think well deserved. They've always been a pretty good basketball school, and let's be honest, in the past few years, they've been playing some ball over there. And when I say ball, I mean football. It's been impressive, and one of the reasons I believe that they've had so much success is some people don't realize this, and some of our listeners and watchers may not know it, but Cincinnati is one of the top high school football areas in the country. I mean, there is teams all over Cincinnati that pump guys into D1, pump guys into the NFL, St. Xavier, Moeller, all these schools, Princeton, Colerain. I could go on for an hour about all the high school football teams that dominate in Cincinnati, and they dominate all over the country because a lot of them play college football schedules and travel like a college football team. So I think that helps with Coach Fickle trying to get his program where he wants to go. Hell, he doesn't have to go real far to recruit some ballers. He just needs to cross town and go see what's up. So kudos to Coach Fickle and Cincinnati. They keep on rolling, and they're still undefeated. We had another game where I've got to be honest, I picked Arkansas to come out on top over Auburn, but did not happen.
Yeah.
What happened to the Hogs, bud?
It's still early. It's still early for Sam Pittman, but some stuff is psychological, man. It's the same way I was talking about. I was talking to a guy in the gym Friday about Alabama, and they were playing this weekend's game. Come on, I had a brain fog. Mississippi State.
Yeah.
And he was a Bama fan, and he was nervous about the game. He was like, well, we just lost one, and blah, blah, blah. And I told him they won't lose to Mississippi State. I was like, I don't care if Alabama's down. I don't care if they just dropped one. And it's the fact of the matter that they've been beating people now for a long time, right? It's going to be hard to capitalize off of it. And we just talked about the level of football didn't really drop off. It's just that, last week, Jimbo, he had his guys fired. We know anything can happen on any given Saturday. They took advantage of that defense, made a couple plays, one more play than Alabama, and they won the game. But it goes back to if you're used to losing to somebody, Nate, you're used to losing to somebody. Come on, and that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, it's guys can come out full of emotion and this and that, but when they get back to thinking, it's a form of conditioning. You're used to losing to those guys. You're used to them being up for national championships, and you aren't.
Yeah.
And that plays a lot into sports and in any sport that you play. And shoot, man, we're gonna see what shakes.
Yeah, I mean, I still like what Coach Pittman has done. I'm not giving up on Arkansas yet. They've still got a lot to play for in this season. They've got, a game. They play Arkansas Pine Bluff next week, so they're going to get another victory. They'll be 5-3. And then they play Mississippi State, LSU, Bama, and Missouri. So I'd say 3 of those games are possible wins. I don't think they can beat Bama, but I think they could beat Mississippi State. I think they can play with LSU. And I think they can play with Mizzou. So
all 3 of those games they'll win.
Yeah, they got a lot to play for still. And, Coach Pittman's got the opportunity to turn it around there. And, I've always not been the biggest Bo Nix guy, but I have to admit He did have a pretty good game yesterday. Still not my guy.
Yeah.
I'm still not a believer on him. This is a guy that's been starting for 4 years now, and at times it looks like he's a freshman. So I'm still not sold on that dude. I would much rather have Malik Willis out of Liberty being my quarterback if I was at Auburn, but he played well yesterday and got the win.
Tell me this. Out of all the SEC teams, right? What team would you say reminded you most of a Wisconsin or an Iowa? It's an Auburn ball club.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't like them. I never have, but
me neither.
They never give you what you think you're going to get. You never know. They're unpredictable. They can look like all-stars this week and then bottom of the pack the next week. So I would have liked for Sam Pittman and Arkansas to beat those guys because I just don't like Auburn football. Auburn football, Notre Dame, I can't stand them. Being honest, I can't stand those two ball clubs, and I was kind of hurt. I didn't want those guys to beat Sam Pittman in Arkansas. I like what Sam Pittman stands for. I like what he's doing with Arkansas's ball club, and Auburn plays the role of a spoiler. They can show up and ruin a good thing. Hey, look, and then they'll go play out of conference. Look, I'm talking trash about them. I don't care. They'll go.
I'm with you, bud. Continue.
They'll go play out of conference and lay an egg.
Yeah.
On somebody they're supposed to whoop.
Yeah.
I don't like when they're here beating good teams or quality teams in the SEC because they're not for real. They're not a thorough program to me.
No.
I can't stand them, Nate. I'm done.
I can't either. I can't either, buddy. I'm right there with you. I'm a hater. So, and I don't believe in them. I really don't. I mean, this is a team that, let's look at their schedule. They should have lost to Georgia State. Very easily could have lost to LSU. They ended up winning 24-19. They got shellackled by Georgia with Stetson at the helm. And yesterday's game was a lot closer than that score. They put one in the end zone late, but it was a one-score game until Arkansas turned the ball over on downs, and Auburn went down and scored. So they're 5-2, but who's the big win on that schedule? I mean, they played Penn State and lost. They beat Alabama State. I mean, I'm not really seeing anybody that leads me to believe that they're solid because they're not. So
tell me this, Nate. What do you think they'll do with Ole Miss next week at home?
I think Ole Miss is going to spank them. Is just my personal opinion. I don't think that just watching, we'll get into this game here in a second, but watching Ole Miss play last night, this is not the Ole Miss of old. This is not Ole Miss from last year. Ole Miss can play some defense now, and I think they'll take care of old Bo Nix. That's just my opinion, but I don't know what you think.
I think Ole Miss will get it done. We'll get into that game, I guess, here soon anyway. But your quarterback, Corral, he's a playmaker. He can run. He can throw. In this Tennessee game, he's responsible for 426 yards, basically. 195 rushing, 231 passing. He did his part. He was pretty much the offense, if you ask me. And then you said Coach Kiffin did a good job of bringing in some guys on that defensive side who can play. He did his thing. He went out and recruited ball players for the defensive side, and it's showing up this year. Last year was spurts of offense with no defense. This year you have a much more well-rounded team. And, too bad my team, my dog in the fight, lost, but we played a pretty good game. I'm happy with what, Coach Heupel's doing over there. He's getting the best out of what he has, for sure. He shows that he's really a great offensive guy. I was skeptical at first. I was not skeptical, just I need to see more. And I'm watching what he's doing, with Tennessee. I'm watching what he did with the transfer QBs. Now that he has time to sit there, I want to see what kind of quarterback he's bringing in these recruiting classes. I'm starting to trust him. I think he can bring in some quality guys. Because listen, I think that's the difference between. This is gonna sound crazy. Tennessee and South Carolina right now. Both first-year coaches here, right, in the SEC.
Yep.
Coach Heupel went out. He didn't rely on the quarterbacks that were on the roster. What did he do?
Yeah.
He had a couple transfer guys in.
Yeah.
Let me have more options at quarterback, and it's paying off. South Carolina's QB play is awful.
Yeah.
They barely won that game last night. I know I saw Coach's face, and he was. Hey, look, he looked like he might have had a breakdown if they lost that game.
South Carolina?
What?
Yeah.
Coach Beamer, I was watching, and I was happy that they won. I was happy that they did get that win, but man, they almost lost that game to Vandy.
Well, and they had to take out their starter, Doty, and put in a guy who was cold. And he came in and looked like he'd been playing all game. I'm like, why have you not been playing this dude? I'm like, he's coming down. You're down. They were down a score with, less than a minute and a half left. And this guy took them all the way down the field for 6. Yeah. And, man, that would have been an embarrassing loss for the Gamecocks if they would have lost to Vandy, who, as we mentioned, already lost to ETSU this year. So, wow. Yeah, it's two different directions. And, there's a lot of people around here. Obviously, I live here in Knoxville, and there's been a lot of folks in this area who've been calling for, the third stringer to play out there. And let me tell you what, number 5, he was a dog last night, and he was throwing it. He was running it. He was in control of the offense. And any of these idiots that were calling for Harrison Bailey to be the quarterback,
no, sir.
I hope they're choking on it today.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't the reason they lost last night.
Sir. No, sir.
They had some trouble getting stops at the end of the game, or not the very end, but throughout, third down for what? And they were having trouble. They were playing good coverage. Alante Taylor and the boys, Theo Jackson being back. The coverage was there. It was just 3rd down and 9, 3rd down and 10, sometimes 4th and long, and Corral was taken off. And they just didn't have an answer for that.
That's it. He was using his legs. He was improvising. Man, that's hard to stop when you got a guy who knows when it's time to run.
No, and a guy who can throw it like he can.
It's a problem. A problem. But Theo Jackson and what's my guy? Trayvon Flowers.
Yeah.
Those guys were playing good football.
Really good. And I've got to give you credit, too. You called this a couple of weeks ago. You gave a shout out to your boy 33, Jeremy Banks.
Hey,
and I got to admit, I wasn't the biggest. I just didn't know if he was a real deal linebacker. He's played running back. He's played linebacker. He had some issues, had to leave the team for a while. He was all over the place last night. 15 tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, a quarterback hurry. He was a dog last night.
Oh, he was playing football. Good football.
He was all over the place.
Yeah, Banks was definitely the guy leading that defense last night. He's a football, but he's a tough guy. He's a tough physical guy who's going to do his part and some. So I was happy to see him out there, just competing, being a warrior. I didn't know he had 15.
15. I knew. I was watching the game, and I'm like, man, he's been all over the place. I was like, I wonder what kind of digits he put up. And I checked it out, and he had 9 solos, 15 total tackles, a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hurry. And, there was other plays that he, changed what Ole Miss was able to do because he was in position almost all night of where he needed to be. So
hey, I'm giving credit to Coach Banks too. I told you I like that dude, man.
Yeah.
You can tell because guys are playing fast, right? Guys are flying to the football. So guess what? That means that they have a good understanding of the game. They have a good understanding of their responsibility. They know what they can and can't do in this defense. So you know what happens then? The less thinking you're doing, the more your natural ability shows up. Now you're playing at the best. You're playing the best that you can play now because you're just flying. You're not thinking that much. Now
Yeah.
your natural instincts kicking in, and that's what you're getting. I mean, you have what's my other guy name? Beasley.
Aaron
Come on.
Beasley.
He's even playing good football right now, and that's just knowing what you can and can't do, having good understanding of your defense, good understanding of your responsibility. Coach Banks, hey, look, I said he was the man, and people were
Yeah.
like him. I'm like, man, I've known Coach Banks since I was in the ninth grade.
Yeah.
You know, when he was coaching up in Maryland, the University of Maryland, and I'm telling you, he's a student of the game. He can explain to you the game inside and out, and I'm happy that Tennessee has him as a D coordinator. That was a great hire.
No, he had a wonderful game plan last night, and Tim Banks is a guy that doesn't get a ton of credit, but he deserves credit for what they did last night. I mean, holding Ole Miss to 30 points. I mean, this is a team that averages way more than that, and they struggled to throw the football at times. I know they were missing some dudes, but it didn't really matter who was out there. Nobody was open, and that's why he kept taking off. And credit to Corral for taking what the defense gave him, which wasn't much, but I guarantee you that dude is sore today. He's in the ice tub because he got his ass knocked around. He won the game and he did enough to win it, but man, he took some shots. And what he run the ball? How many times he run the ball?
I have it
30 times.
30 times for 195. Yep.
30 times. This ain't a running back now. This is a 6-foot quarterback running the ball 30 times, and pretty impressive. But I've got to give credit where it's due. Coach Heupel is known for his high flying offense, but really this year they've been a running team, and they were missing Evans yesterday, who was banged up, and some people thought maybe the running game would suffer, but Hooker took over. 23 carries, 108 yards. Jabari Small, 21 carries, 92 yards. Both of them averaged over 4 yards a carry and had a touchdown. That rushing attack looks pretty solid.
You know what that tells me? It shows me that coach is just working with what he has. Now, of course, that's going to change here in the next couple of years when he's getting all the guys that he wants in there. But right now, you got to go with what works. You got to go with what you have on the roster. And I like it. He's adapting to what he has to do to stay in the ball game and win ball games. And I'm impressed with the dude. I'm happy to be involved. We're going to be all right.
No, I am too. I was very impressed. And, Lane Kiffin's return to Knoxville, was almost ended up in a loss. But, we got to talk a little bit about what happened there at the end. That was ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, there was some horrible calls in this game. The call in the first half where the defender took it away from Corral and ran it for a touchdown. Did you see that?
Come on.
What the hell was that? I mean, that was a fumble, bro. I mean, I don't know what Corral was doing, standing there, not moving, but they took the ball out of his hand and ran in the same swoop. I mean, that was a touchdown, in my opinion. And, the spot at the end, I don't know. I mean, that was tough. But basically, they called it that he was short, and you couldn't really tell from any of because they had horrible angles, which I don't understand. You got 55 freaking cameras in there, and you ain't got a shot on the left side. I don't get that, but that was not a great call either. It could have gone either way, but there was some bad calls. But that was an ugly look. Almost having to forfeit the game there at the end. Not a good look there in Knoxville. Maybe they'll rethink that alcohol sales in the stadium because, man, that throwing golf balls at Lane. Who the hell's taking golf balls into the stadium?
Throwing golf balls at how does that happen? But throwing golf balls at anybody, come on, there's no place for that in this game. So hopefully they identify a couple of people. You're probably not going to find everybody responsible, but as long as somebody pays for it in there, because you got to set the standard. That can't be allowed. I don't care who we're playing.
No.
You can't do that. You can yell, you can boo. Hey, look, this is gonna sound crazy. And no, I don't want you to do it. But even the old school, throwing stuff out there, maybe some cups or something. People have done that for years, and it's still wrong. But golf balls, Nate, come on, golf balls.
It was a bad look, and it was a night.
You're trying to hurt somebody with a golf ball.
Oh, hell yeah, you were. And it was a good throw, though. I'll give him that. I mean, Kiffin was out on the damn field, and that guy tagged him with the yellow golf ball. So it was a good throw, but it was ridiculous. I mean, this is a night where, honestly, one of the best games I've seen Tennessee football play in a long time. Yep. I mean, against a ranked opponent at home, amazing atmosphere for most of the night. And it's now completely and utterly overshadowed by what went down at the end. And that's a shame, because Coach Heupel had a terrific game plan. As you mentioned, Coach Banks had a great game plan. Hooker, who is the best quarterback on this roster, I mean, that just, it all is kind of overshadowed by what happened at the end. And I hope that Hooker's okay, because I don't know if you saw, he got injured on the last drive, and they had to trot old Milton back out there. And wow, we figured out real quick why old Joe is not playing anymore. How can you not throw that ball in the end zone, dude? How do you not throw that ball in the end zone? He ran it out of bounds with zeros on the clock.
Yeah, you gotta have better awareness than that. You gotta have better awareness. You gotta try. Take a shot.
Throw the ball.
I'm just still sitting here thinking about how we're overshadowed. The play of those players and the game calling was overshadowed, Nate, like you said. I was just looking at the video of it. Man, at the end of the game, okay, when it's actually over, but you're doing this during the game, and then golf balls should never be a thing. No. Golf balls should never be a thing. Like during the game, I'm looking at it right now, and just no place for that. Like you said, they could have been talking on Sports Center and our radio show and other shows about the improvement of this team, about how well the coaches are coaching, how the players responded to a ranked opponent in the stadium, how they fought to the end, how we got some things we can work on and improve and get better and take the next step. But instead, we're talking about fans throwing golf balls at a coach and then flooding the field with bottles, and it's just too much. That's too much. I'm sad that had to happen, because they're taking steps down the street from you, Nate. They're growing. The program's getting better for sure.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I've got to ask you a question as a guy who, played this game at the highest level for a long time. Let's be honest, we all understand that Coach Heupel's offense is predicated on tempo. That's how a lot of their plays work. That's how a lot of their offensive schemes are successful, because he doesn't allow substitutions, and he doesn't allow the defense to get set in a lot of occasions. And so I've got to ask you, I just don't know, man. I mean, there was a lot of instances where guys were laying down last night for Ole Miss. And I mean, I saw 10, 12 minimum, maybe more than 12 guys that came up lame. And I want to know what you think about that, because I just don't think there's any place for that. And if you sit here and tell me that none of those guys were faking it,
yeah,
I just don't believe you.
At some point, you got to be penalized, or we got to start throwing. You're gonna have to use a timeout if you have but so many within maybe a quarter or something. We may have to implement some kind of new ruling for it, because that's exactly what they were doing. They were buying time. Now the trainer's coming out there pretending to work on you, pretending to out. Come on, I know, because I've been in that situation. Happened once in my career, and it was that my senior year? 2009, Auburn. Hey, Hey, I want to say we had 40 plays on defense, 45 plays on defense the first half. Nate, you had no time to gather your breath. And I'm looking back, I'm like, man, maybe we should have been dropping like because that's what these guys were doing. It was awful. They were trying to buy time, give coach time to make subs, to make adjustments. And no, you got to get out there and play ball. You can't keep doing that over and over again.
And that's one. And I'm not defending what happened at the end of the game. That was ridiculous. That was disgusting. And it was dangerous. I mean, dudes, I guarantee you somebody got hurt. If I saw people throwing e-pens down on the field. I mean, there was anything that whiskey bottles, anything anybody could find, they were chucking on the field. But I kind of understood the frustration because there was some, like I mentioned, horrible calls. And then it was just like every time the offense got rolling, somebody went down with a hammy, or somebody went down with some cramps. And you know what? It wasn't really that hot last night over here, Rico. I live here, and I was outside. And it was damn cold last night. There's no way all those guys were cramping up. And what I thought was funny was they'd go over to the side for a play, and then they'd trot their ass right back in the game. And I heard Jordan Rodgers mention that if you if it's you go down like that, you should have to sit out for a series.
I like it
like that, and I kind of like that. I mean, I don't know what else you can do.
Yep.
To prevent that. But I've seen it in other games as well. It's not just Ole Miss that was doing it last night. I've seen other teams doing it throughout the course of this season, and I think it's disgusting.
Well, you know who used to do it some years ago, who used to have teams doing it to them? Oregon. When Chip Kelly had them rolling back in the day, people would sit down, fall out, whatever, because they were flying. They were flying, and you didn't want to give up that big play. But that was the first time I saw people start doing that. It was of course, when people don't have timeouts left, and you'll do it. But sometimes it's just to be able to get a second to talk to your players or relay a message or to make a slight adjustment. Hey, when they go to that trips right now, I need you to bump this outside a little wider. And that's why they were doing it last night, and it was upsetting. And hey, like you said, you get some people in there drunk, passionate, hoping their Vols can get a victory, and you got this going on like over and over again. It doesn't make it right, but it did fuel the fire a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did. And, I've seen some pretty awesome tweets today. There was a lot of them going on during the game where they were like, this injury stuff is ridiculous, and I agree with them. There were some Vol fans that were like, you don't want the Vols throwing stuff, then officiate better. I get all that, but it's just I don't like, because there's people that actually get hurt in football games. I mean, you've got injured before. I got injured. People get injured, and it happens because it's a very, very physical game. So I don't think there's any place in this game for faking injuries. Regardless of what you're trying to do. I think it's ridiculous and disgusting. And I know that some of those guys were not they were not hurt because they came right back in and played a couple of plays later. And I don't know, it just was not a good look. But it was a great game, and I think that hopefully the crazy ass fans around here will understand that they've got the right guy playing quarterback.
I agree.
This guy, man,
take away from that game. He's the guy for the job.
Yeah. He's the real deal. And I think he's a winner. And I think this offense he's running the type of offense that makes him look good out there. And that it took him a little while to get going, but this is a guy who just joined the program a few months ago. So, I understood why it took him a little while to get out of the gate, but we'll see. Going forward, what do you see for this Vols? I mean, you know what the schedule looks like. You've been on this team before. Things don't get any easier, and you know who they're playing next weekend. What's going to happen after this game? Are they going to rally the troops and keep rolling? Because they've got Bama, Kentucky, and Georgia, 3 weeks in a row.
Hey, somebody has to give it up. Somebody is going to come in sleeping on the Vols because we have to get one of those games. I know that you're new and improved, Kentucky, but this is one of those cases where I feel like, what was I talking about? The psychological effect?
Yeah.
And yeah, they did whoop us last year, but guess what? We've whooped them many more times than they've beaten us. And I think that that's going to come into play next week. We have to win that game. We're going to win that game strictly for tradition and want to. We have to will our way to that. It won't make sense to people outside, but that's one of those games where you're like, hey, fellas, I don't care what they're ranked. We have to go in there and we have to come out with a victory. And what do you think about that? I mean, that's just, as a Vol, that's just how I feel.
26 years in a row, Tennessee took down Kentucky. 26 years in a row. And I'm not talking about home games. I'm not talking about away games. I'm talking about strung together. Right. Tennessee took their asses down 26 years in a row. And I know it's not the same Kentucky team, but like you said, you got to have that mentality. Like, we've owned these fools. And that's a big game for me. I think Alabama's going to be able to take care of business. Mm-hmm. Just with the way that the depth is on Tennessee's team right now, the first 22 are great.
Yeah, they can play ball.
They can play with anybody, but you start going further down that depth chart, and it doesn't look quite as good. So I think they may have some difficulty against the Crimson Tide. But I think that the Kentucky game is a winnable game, especially after watching what happened last night. I think they can. I think they can go toe to toe with the Wildcats. Now, will they beat them? I don't know, but I think they have a shot in that game, and that's a game for me that they've got to win.
They have to win that game. I mean, Alabama will be a measuring stick game to see, where we are, where we stand at the end of that game. I mean, it's a powerhouse, and like I said, I think they have the best player in college football.
Yeah.
That's going to be a nice test for us. But Kentucky is a game we have to find a way to win. We have to, be excellent on special teams, try to limit our turnovers, make as few mistakes as possible, and go out there amped up. Let's play football. Let's play for 60 minutes. UGA, hey, they'll come in. We'll put our best foot forward and see what happens. Then they finish up with South Alabama and Vandy. If we can get us 7 wins, man, that'd be amazing. But we have to win. I don't care if they're ranked 11 in the country, and they'll probably be higher than that. Who does Kentucky have next?
Kentucky, we just talked about it, and now I can't remember. Hold on. Kentucky plays Mississippi State.
Oh, they'll get them. So Kentucky will probably be a top 10 team. And what a way to say that we're coming back than to upset Kentucky.
Yeah. No, that's a big game for the status of this program.
That sounds wrong for me to even say that.
No. I'm right behind you.
Upset Kentucky. I never lost a game to Kentucky.
No.
I was about upset Kentucky.
No, man. I used to drive around with a little sticker on my car that said 26 years in a row. And I had a little chant going, which I would give the Kentucky fans just to rub it in a little bit. But, this ain't your daddy's Kentucky ball club. So
it's different.
It's not going to be quite as easy. So Coach Stoops has got those boys playing. We're gonna watch. We're going to watch and we're going to see what happens. Obviously, we're going to be back next week and we're going to dissect the Vols versus Bama. We're going to have a guy who played a big part in the rivalry of Tennessee versus Alabama also join us. Well, we already got you. And then we're going to have Mr. Joey Kent come on the program next week as well. One of the all-time leading receivers in SEC history, the all-time leading receiver in Tennessee history, and a great dude. I don't know if all our listeners have ever met this guy, but he's a really, really nice guy. So we're going to have him on and get his thoughts. and we're gonna break down the Bama game. Hopefully they play tough and they hang in there is what I'm hoping for.
Show up, play a sound game for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's all I can ask.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure. I'm with you now. I wasn't sure what to expect with this coach and this coaching staff. But I have to admit, after watching the South Carolina game, after watching this game, I believe.
I do too.
I believe, man. This guy Heupel knows what the hell he's doing, and he's fighting a lot of battles, injuries, depth, the last few years of what's gone on here with a different coach every year and 36 guys leaving. We call that attrition. He's fighting a lot of battles. So the product that he's putting out on the field with also fighting those battles, I think is pretty impressive.
Listen, he's doing a heck of a job. He's putting out a team out there that's competing every week, and they're getting better.
Yeah.
They're getting better, and these aren't his guys, and he's making the best of it. And I'm excited to see what he can do with his recruiting class that comes in. And man, we should have some good things happening. I just hope we can keep that same staff intact because I like that continuity, man. That's going to help with recruiting a whole lot. I mean, you're not just you're going to have something else that you need to sell people other than it's just a great place or this. Keep that core together. Keep Coach Banks there.
Yeah.
Keep those guys there for a while so that you can sell that, because in this conference right now, there's not a lot of it, Nate.
No.
You can't really go anywhere. They're like, yeah, my O-line coach has been with me for 9 years.
Yeah.
Trying to get back to that point.
Yeah, like you mentioned before, when you were looking at schools, the David Cutcliffe, John Chavis, those guys, the Chief was with Fulmer for 10 plus years.
And Brooks, D-line coach, secondary coach, linebacker coach, D coordinator, offensive coordinator, O-line. Those guys were there together for 10 years, and you love that. So if we can get back to on track to doing things that way, it'd help us out a lot.
I agree.
Our full body of work has to be better because, I mean, you have your big name Nick Sabans out there, and you have Lane Kiffin, who everybody knows. As much as people in Knoxville don't like him, his name carries weight, especially on the recruiting trail. Yeah. So what we can sell is, let's build up Coach Heupel, but let's also try to keep something intact so that we can sell that as a package. Like, come on, we've had the same coaches for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. Come here and be a part of a real family. Everybody says family, but Coach, I'm looking at your turnover and your staff. You can't know this guy that well, Coach. He's been here for a season.
No, and that's been the biggest issue on this team is that every year there's most of the time there's a different head guy, and then even if the head guy is not here, they've struggled, and so they've had to get rid of their staff to keep their job. So the guy that recruited everybody's gone, or the guy that coached the defense is gone, and it makes a big difference to have a staff intact and to have some continuity with the program. So hopefully they'll get that going.
All right.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. I had a good time breaking it down.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like garbage, so I'm going to go lay down and wake up tomorrow.
Hopefully. Yourself. Eat some veggies and drink plenty of water. You'll be all right.
That's what I'm going to do, man.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Rico. Coach, I appreciate you.
No problem.
I'll talk to you real soon, buddy.
All right. Take care of yourself.
All right.